Hello and welcome to M&A Access, the official podcast for the Alliance of M&A Advisors. My name is Gina Galusha, and I'm the Executive Director of AMA. Today, we have a great podcast for you about the impact of AI on the M&A industry. The panel is an awesome mix of AI experts as well as M&A practitioners talking about the impact that AI has had on the industry and what impact it will have. The three top takeaways that we have for you today are: one, the highest and best use of an advisor's time and how AI can help you partner with you in that and support you in that. Two, the importance of a 5-year strategic plan. And three, how to approach compliance and protect against fines. Led by John Cohan, a partner at Gusmere Updegrove. He's also an AI enthusiast extraordinaire, so we'll let him take it from here.
So welcome, everybody. I'm glad we have a good crowd here today to figure out what AI is all about, especially in M&A. So I'm John Cohan. I'm a corporate partner at Gusmere Updegrove in Boston. And I'm here with the smartest guys in the room here, that's for sure. Certainly a lot smarter than me. And I'm going to let each one of them introduce themselves so they can give you an idea what their background is and how they play, what roles they play in AI, and I think how they can be helpful to each one of us going forward. So Jacob, I'll start with you.
Hey, I'm Jacob Andra, CEO of Talbot West. We are a digital transformation partner. We bring AI solutions both on the advisory side and on the implementation side for the middle market. We drive EBITDA growth and multiple expansion via 3 primary value channels. Business process optimization is a big one. Data activation, meaning helping turn underutilized data assets into competitive advantage. That's a second one. And then a third is product or service augmentation, essentially adding AI onto what you already do to make it better, open up new value channels, that sort of thing. So we love working with advisors such as yourselves to bring your clients the very best sort of AI solutions. And yeah, that's it for me.
Bill McAlpin, I'm CEO of Capitalized Network. We do lower middle market sell-side investment banking and pre-transaction planning and preparation. And I'm up on the panel for 2 reasons. One, to speak for the investment banking community as to how we use AI and how we spend our time in the first place. Secondly, forming a new entity called Biz Foresight, which is taking the pre-transaction planning and preparation process with a multimodal AI agent to take that to scale. So that's coming soon, but effectively applying AI to the business development part of mergers and acquisitions.
I'm Justin Nelson, and I'm a partner at KLR within the Transaction Advisory Group. Most of my time is spent on financial diligence for both buy and sell side deals, companies that range in the size anywhere between 1 million to 15 million in EBITDA across all industries. Within the group, we also have a dedicated tax team that provides helping out with deal structuring and then also tax diligence. For the ones that don't know who KLR is, we're a regional accounting firm, top 100 regional accounting firm based in the New England area. Offices primarily in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, with some satellite offices, one in Florida, and also one international in Switzerland to support our international tax practice.
My name is George Sandman, and I'm an entrepreneur. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm a bit of an innovator, and I think I'm on the panel because I run a software business that helps you communicate to a variety of audiences, your clients, private equity, bankers, et cetera, how a business looks to the private capital markets using a lens we call strategic capacity. And we're in the process of implementing AI, so I was fascinated with our round table before we came up here. We spent about an hour chatting about it. And AI is transforming how we're able to help our customers, help your clients, and this is an exciting time. So thank you.
Well, hi everyone. That scared me a bit, sorry. My name is Dr. Sean Saunders. I am a founder and managing partner of Quantum Performance Partners. We're headquartered in Denver, Colorado. Our firm, very similar to what Jacob was saying, we kind of spilled a lot of the same blood in the same mud. We have three kind of verticals in our team. The first one is we do M&A advisory, so both the buy and the sell side. So either helping founders prepare to go to market or folks that are want some help on the buy side, we can do that as well. The second piece is the consulting side. So we provide boots on the ground, all former senior executives, all done multiple exits. So we can kind of come in and help kind of de-risk some of the M&A stuff that we've all kind of seen. But the last piece, and probably most pertinent for today, is the technology side of our business. So I've spent the last almost 5 years of my life doing research specifically on AI and digitalization and private equity. And I actually wrote my dissertation on the digitalization strategies that private equity firms in the US lower middle market use to optimize enterprise values. And so I could provide a little bit of, I think, of an academic sense, but also a little bit of a practical too. And I'm just really honored to be on the stage with these guys. These guys they're all legit. I think we'll have a really good conversation.
I agree, Sean, so thank you. So I'll tell you, I thought I knew kind of what AI was until I talked with these guys. And then, I mean, my jaw dropped, and I think a lot in this room are going to drop too. And we sort of talk about what do we mean when we say AI, especially kind of in the M&A space. But let's break it down and start with what do we mean by AI? I know you've got a mouthful of water, Sean, but I'm going to start with you. And I want to kind of ping pong between you and Jacob, because you both have similar yet somewhat divergent views, and I think they're very interesting. So go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion around what AI really is, and you start hearing words like machine learning and natural language processing and large language models and neural networks and things like that. And yes, that's all artificial intelligence. But at the end of the day, I like to think of artificial intelligence. It's not going to think like a human, but it's going to pre-process a lot of information to make your life a lot easier. And to help automate some processes. And when I think about it, that's kind of how I think about it. And what you'll find is you're going to hear me talk about things in a very, very simple way, because I really don't want to go down a wormhole and make it super complicated. But that's kind of how I think about it. But AI is, I would say, kind of a process of moving from very structured type of data into moving stuff around. How do we get to a point where we're actually doing generative stuff? And I think you're going to talk about that piece, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can get very academic about this stuff, but from a functional perspective, for what everybody in this room cares about, you can kind of divide AI into two parts, generative and deterministic. This is an oversimplification, but generative is very creative. It's what we know as ChatGPT and the other large language models. It's very good at filling in gaps, at doing things you didn't expect. It can surprise you with how good it is. It's also prone to errors and hallucinations. It's terrible at large data processing tasks, all of that. So it's got strengths and weaknesses. Then you have all your more deterministic types of AI that are pretty much 100% reliable, but they're kind of bad at doing anything else other than what they were specifically programmed to do. Now we like to construct, sort of ensemble formats where you have different types of AI working together, each one doing what it does best, and we think that's kind of a best of both worlds, and that's where we think everything is headed to kind of this modular ensemble approach. Yeah.
So given that, so now we have a baseline of sort of what we think it is, right? It's kind of dual, right? The deterministic and then the generative. For our purposes, how does that help us in M&A, and how does that play a role in the M&A ecosystem, right? So, George, I want to ask you sort of what your thought is on how it plays across the different silos of disciplines in M&A, sort of what you think and where you're coming out on that.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's a great question. So frankly, you can think about it in two ways, right? One is reclaiming your time and reclaiming time that you can use for client acquisition, for client-facing activities, and to become much more efficient, right? That's one application of AI. But where I think it gets really exciting is when we start combining disparate data sets and doing it in a very time-efficient and very accurate way, when we start building in deterministic models that are going to be fairly bulletproof, and we haven't gotten into security, but they're also black box, and allow you to very, very efficiently and with an audience in mind, combine different data sets, leverage different data from different, imagine ERP, CRM, and your financial being brought together to generate a report for a specific purpose or a specific audience, and AI can do that very, very efficiently and very quickly. And what's cool, what I'm like literally shaking with excitement about, I'm so psyched for what's about to happen for us all, is that we get to a place where AI can send an email, it can get an email, right? It can order a pizza if you wanted it to. So you're going to start being able to communicate and push accountabilities and monitor those accountabilities in real time in a way that is very, very efficient for us as advisors and is deeply impactful for our clients.
And so, and again, I think AI helps in us doing what we do and do it well, right? So it's a value add, it's an increase to the value rather than dragging us down on more of the kind of administrative, and even if you go across silos in M&A, whether it's accounting, legal, investment banking, what are the kind of the rote things that we're doing that we think AI might be able to take the place of at some point, right? Bill, you've got some good views on this sort of what's the best way to use your hour, right? And how do you play that into AI, sort of giving AI the ability to do certain things that allow you to do more of what you're best at, right?
So if you ask me to be on a panel, I'm going to have some slides, right? So I reached out to a bunch of investment bankers and just said, tell me what you spend your day doing. If you take an average labor year, how much do we work on each thing? Because I wanted to establish this as a baseline of where's the problem? Where's the opportunity here? What do we work on? So this is what was responded back. We have on your left is basically kind of the average typical investment banker. About 25% of their normal year is business development. Now on the right was the kind of the most extreme, 50% of an entire year was all biz dev. All in blue is deal time, from marketing materials, buyer research and buyer list prep, diligence, negotiation of the LOI, Q of E support, legal docs, all the way through to close. So a typical investment banker is about 2/3 deal time and 1/3 non-deal time, okay? And of that 1/3, 25% business development and 9% everything else, management of the firm and so forth. So the second question I asked the folks that I reached out to, all investment bankers, what does AI touch here right now for you? What do you do right now? And we really only had responses in deal prep, like preparing a SIM, and that was about, on average, 13% savings currently for the people who use AI in that area. So it's 13% of 10% of your year. It's a small portion right now. 27% was saved on the buyer list creation, so that was getting more significant, and then outbound emails and other communications and so forth for sort of the non-deal stuff. So when you multiply those percentages, it was about a 4% savings in the hours of your year right now, or maybe about 110 hours out of 2,700. And 2,700 hours is somebody working, 50, 52 hours a week, which was average. Okay, so then there's the little bit more hardcore, biz dev extreme person here, and heavier usage of AI. So we had 25% savings on the SIM, 50% savings on the buyer list, and 25% savings on kind of the email, outbound, outreach kind of stuff. And when you multiply those percentages together, it comes out to 6% savings, or maybe almost 200 hours out of 3,100 hours. And 3,100 hours is working 60 hours a week. But those people tended to do more biz dev. So one of the observations here is the single largest bar on this thing is not deal work. It's chasing deals and doing, very analog things, human contact. So when I think of AI, I think about what's the highest, best use of an hour of your time. What I find is that it's typically 10 or 20 times the number of hours to sort of earn that highest, best use hour. So you might say for an investment banker who's doing biz dev, having everything pulled together, having all the right data together, pitching to a seller, whether you could also be a Q of E person winning a prospect, or an attorney winning the legal work for a deal. That hour is super valuable to actually close that for your firm, but it might take 20 hours to get there, and 20 hours of legwork. That's the answer, I think, is, AI's footprint in this as we go forward, I think, is getting rid of those blocking and tackling hours. It's all of the lower value stuff. I don't think is going to replace humans. It's going to empower them, and let's think about doing way more highest best use hours. So when you guys, get the materials here, I also captured, these are the software packages that were most common for the different workflows, industry research, project management, data rooms, CRM pipeline. These are the products that were most common. And as far as AI tool use, here are the tools, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Llama, for the SIM, large language model, natural language work. For the buyer research, ChatGPT, there's a off-the-shelf kind of platform called PrivSource and vEquity. Just wanted to kind of capture these resources here so that you can come away from this panel session and also, check some of these things out. But the last thing we surveyed was, do you have a roadmap? Do you actually have a plan? Do you have a digital technology plan for your firm? And have you done anything in-house? Have you done any development? Do you have an internal committee about this, so forth? Resoundingly, the answer to both of those was no, but we want to. So that's kind of where we are as a starting point. So being up here, that's the state of the union for investment banking, and I think that's the challenge right there, is replacing those lower value, non-best use hours of these very high caliber M&A advisors.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a reallocation, essentially, of that hour, right? How much time, how much value is added based on, your use of the machine versus the human, right? But a lot of us are probably asking, so where do we begin? How do we think about a plan, right? Where this is going to go? Yeah. Jacob, why don't you talk to us about kind of that thesis you were referring to in our roundtable?
Yeah, so at Talbot West, we've developed what we call our 5-year thesis, and it essentially says, in 2030, any business of scale that stays competitive is going to be AI-enabled end-to-end. What that means is total integration, data orchestration across every department, coordination, every department coordinated with every other. I mean, it's a level of efficiency that's really hard to imagine today because we're so used to a very siloed and fragmented structure. But the reason we're so confident it's going to happen is because, one, it's technologically feasible, and two, the competitive advantage that organizations that reach this level of total organizational intelligence, other organizations just won't be able to compete. So it'll drive everyone to get there, and we think it'll take about 5 years. Now, we might be a little off on our timeline, but our whole thing is let's help you get there as painlessly as possible, because it's a huge undertaking, so let's break it down, do it a step at a time, and kind of roadmap it. Bill talked about roadmaps, and honestly, a huge part of what we do is just helping develop that roadmap. Yes, we can help you also implement, specific steps, but like getting that intelligence out there, that roadmap, both the high level 30,000 foot view and the strategic tactical next steps to kind of get from here to where you need to be in 5 years.
Could I add a comment there? Two comments, actually. Bill, thank you. That's great stuff. When you think about business development, when people come to our community, one of the first things they want to talk about is business development. And we are very pointedly, we do very little, we support biz dev, but you should be looking for someone, and there are people here at the conference who are using AI, who are highly trained in AI, who are helping with biz dev. I don't know if, Christine, are you in the room? Christine, there you are. It's like, people like Christine are fantastic at harnessing these technologies and helping you stay ahead of the competition. Now, back to your comment, when we look at AI, we are bounded by our imagination, right? And so we think we use our familiar to contemplate what AI might do for us, and you need to stop. You need to let your imagination run amok. Because the way we've approached it is very similar to a strategic planning process. We have a vision for what AI could do, and this is what I'm encouraging you all to do. Create a vision for what AI might do for you, and use the word might, right? What could it do? What is the wildest thing we could do? And then create a mission, think about a mission, then form a strategy, and then get into the tactical implementation, knowing that this is going to be, it's moving fast. We talked, Sean, if you want to comment on that, but if you have a vision, a mission, and a strategy, you will be way ahead of the game, which goes to Bill's point that we're all sitting around saying, I don't even know where to start. Start with your imagination.
Yeah, so Bill, thank you for the research there. My research found very similar things. Most firms, whether it's a private equity firm, whether it's M&A advisory firm, most firms don't have a strategy. There's a very famous model. I'll talk academic here for a second. There's a very famous model called the strategic alignment model. It was created back in the late 90s. And that model basically came down and said, if you align your technology strategy, now think about just technology from what it was back in the 90s, like how many people had a 286 and a 386 and a Pentium. If you aligned what you were doing on your technology to your business strategy, you're going to outperform your business or outperform your competitors by 10 to 15%. That number has held true since the 1990s. Well, now we need to kind of rethink that model a little bit, and now it's more of the AI strategy. How do you take the AI strategy and align that to your business strategy? Well, let's flip that for a second. And maybe it's not the business strategy, maybe it's the investment thesis, whether it's someone we're working on the sell side or the buy side, or if you're in the private equity firm, what's the thesis around your entire firm? So if you can align, I think you start there. Sometimes I agree with you. I think we have to start with the creativity, start with the things that we can use to do bolt-on to solve some of the problems that we have right now. That's a great way to start. But sometimes, because we're so anxious to actually start these projects, we end up creating activity and not action. And so it's really important that we start with where we're trying to be able to get to, because an AI strategy for a company that specializes in or is doing things like you're doing with AI and software and technology, that strategy is going to be very different than a landscaping company, right? And so you need to think it very differently. And so they're all going to have to be very bespoke to what that individual business is. And then I think once you're very clear on that, you can be either, and you break this down and do a little 4-quadrant. Once you break it down there, then it begins to set the structure or the scaffold about where you should start to look. One of the things that Bill mentioned, and I want to hook into this, we joked about this a little bit earlier today. There's a lot of folks that are afraid that AI is going to take their job, and it's going to take some of of what we do away. And I use the analogy that we're all probably around the same age. I think everybody in the room is when Excel and Lotus 1-2-3.
Lotus 1-2-3.
Remember when that came out? We were like, oh my gosh, the accounting's not going to have a job, and everything is. And my dad was a CFO at the time, and so was my granddad. But that's actually not what happened. What happened is Excel and those types of tools gave us the ability to actually look wider and actually do bigger analysis and do more analysis because we could repeat it. And then what did it do? It gave us the ability to go much deeper and provide greater insights. And I think that's going to be the opportunity for us, is that it's not going to slow us down. It's going to make us faster. It's going to give us the ability to go deeper. And we're going to see that in the client experience. We're going to see that in the final work products that we put out. And I think that's really the promise of what we have from AI. But I think you have to start with the strategy and how do you align that with what it is that you're actually doing. Because again, otherwise you're creating activity, not action.
Right. I mean, you want to avoid the ready, shoot, aim, right? You got to have some kind of plan in place. And a lot of people are like, we don't even know where to start with our plan, right? I mean, you know, how quickly can that be adapted? I mean, you're talking a 5-year thesis, but, you know, in 5 years, God only knows where we're going to be, you know, technology-wise, right? Now, we talked about business development. We're going to swing back to that, but I want to talk a little bit about operationally how AI can be helpful. So, Justin, I'm looking at you from the accounting perspective, how you're using it, how your firm's using it, where you think that's going, and how quickly that's going to accelerate.
Yeah, it's a great question, John. You know, for us, we wanted to come up with a plan, some strategy. We wanted to, you know, get ahead and not fall behind on, you know, figuring out how do we implement AI. We're still in the process of it. We're talking to a couple of different, like off-the-shelf software programs to really help the diligence process, make it a little bit faster, stop that bottleneck, really. If you think about it, you know, where is most of the time spent on a deal? It's the diligence process. Wise deals die. It's, you know, spending too much time. So if we could help eliminate that, it's going to be a win-win for all of us. We could take on more work, be more efficient, have more time to get out and do the business development type of stuff as well. So a couple of softwares that we're looking at, one of which is called Audit Site. It really helps. You know, if anyone here has ever done any sort of financial diligence, you know, one of the main procedures is the cash proof. Working with a lot of the lower middle market companies, their financial information usually at the most time is horrible. It's messy, a lot of, you know, journal entries, trying to reconcile all of that stuff. It's a nightmare. This software could get in, you know, to talk to the GL system, grab bank rec information as well, and basically do that analysis behind the scenes for you. And then spit out a report with the issues it finds where you could go to a management meeting and make it much more efficient and streamlined and get down to the point. One other that we were looking at is also called MindBridge as well. And what that does is really help kind of find the trends in different one-off, non-reoccurring type items throughout the financials. It really eliminates a lot of that, you know, data analysis, you know, that beginning stage of the process, and allows you to spend more time on the analysis, more stuff that's going to add value to your customers rather than, you know, data entry and just plain in Excel, basically. But that's how we're trying to, you know, get ahead. That's some softwares that we're looking at to help speed up the process. We're also trying to implement kind of like an AI bot within our firm as well, working with some third-party providers on that, but really on the financial side, that's it.
And as a law firm, I mean, we're struggling with the challenges of, you know, which one do we want to really choose? Which one do we really want to rely on? You know, there's Copilot, there's Claude, there's different ones out there, but it's the way in which you use it. I mean, you and I, you know, you're an accountant, I'm a lawyer, we're bound by the ethics, so we have to be aware and cognizant of that. But at the same time, you have to have enough knowledge in some of this area to understand what the modicum of risk is going to be, right? And a lot of people don't understand that, so they need, you know, the folks that can advise, you know, the Dr. Shawns of the world and the Jacobs of the world that have that know-how and the ability to advise at least on what the first steps are, right? Coming back to business development, in your view, Bill, I'll ask you, kind of what are some of the basic things that you think folks should be thinking about with business? I mean, we know what the data says, right, and what people are doing. But what are some of the tools they can use even right now as a start in business development? What do you think?
Well, for business development, as far as like I'll take the Biz Foresight venture, right? It really comes down to...
That was my lead-in for you, so.
Yeah, there we go, a plug, yeah. It really comes down to identifying and nurturing opportunities, right? If you're just doing it brute force, you're out at trade shows, you're on the street. You know, there are a lot of lower value hours of just hunting and identifying, right? And part of the challenge here is, could we get many of these business owner sellers into a process where they're gravitating towards a transaction? And that's a lot of legwork and a lot of hours that Capitalize might do manually. A typical engagement for pre-transaction planning and preparation might be 2+ labor months spread out over 4+ calendar months. And that's a bottleneck in itself. There's only so much pipeline you can manage when that's your business model. But if you actually had 100 times or 1,000 times that number of business owners, taking a process like that and getting a lot of the legwork in the background and uploading documents and everything all staged up so that one of the advisors in this room could deliver their highest, best use hour of their skills to help that business owner recognize that they need that service, and the platform could then educate them that this is how it plays in and so forth. So as far as the biz dev side, it's going to be a bespoke tool like that, and that the benefit is when you migrate a business owner from I have no idea what I want to do to I know exactly what I want to do and I want to sell in X period of time, they're going to need every single discipline in this room. Yes. And so it is a kind of an ecosystem solution, and I think that is the right approach for biz dev. Because if you do it one-off and say, I'm going to go to some trade show and try and find home services sellers that are ready to go, and I'm, whatever discipline that I am, every other discipline has the same biz dev problem that they need to solve. And so taking an approach like that is different because it then becomes a fountain of opportunities for all of the other disciplines simultaneously.
Could I build on?
Jacob, go ahead.
So just to build on what Bill's saying, and when we're building Biz Foresight together, think of it as a cross-pollination engine that, if you could refer one of your clients to another discipline and get a client back, of course you'd do that all day long, right? But that's hard to scale. So Biz Foresight is doing that at scale. It's everyone kind of puts their clients into a funnel. The clients get incredible value by taking this assessment experience. It gives them a lot of clarity, and then they get kind of cross-matched with other disciplines. And of course, each discipline owns the value channel for their client. They don't get matched with a competitor, but they're open to be matched with other clients, and it really scales that.
Yeah, that's super interesting, and we've had a chance to talk a lot beforehand. Bill, you and I haven't, but that's exactly what we do. What do the private capital markets care about? The private capital markets care about a business's ability to predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow. And one of our biggest barriers is helping our clients understand their business's strategic capacity, right? Its ability to predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow, and to do it in a way that they intuit, right? That they get without talking over them or around them, without using a lot of jargon, and then to connect expertise to the problems that they can't solve themselves. And it's an exciting time. And so you end up in biz dev saying, hey, I have a business. Now I've had a conversation with a client. I've used technology to have that conversation be very efficient. And now I'm using AI to start bringing in outside ideas, to start thinking about who might an acquirer be, what might a better strategy be, what might we do to grow this business? Because growing a business is well understood. It's what private equity does every day. And how do we help clients do potentially a self-directed private equity play on their business so that they show up to the market in a way, how hard is it to get a company to successfully complete due diligence at a top multiple? And every client comes in thinking that they're going to be able to do just that. And this is where technology and AI comes in and can play a very powerful role. I love the model you guys are building. We'll talk more.
I want to kick this to Sean because he and I had a discussion the other day about this is all really cool stuff, right? It's sexy, it's technologically on the edge, but the S word comes into play is security, right? How do we protect kind of what we're doing, and are we going to make sure that somehow bad actors aren't? I know there's no bad actors in the world, but they're going to play games. So how do you protect against that?
Yeah, that's a really, really great and important question. I mean, firstly, if you're using ChatGPT or any of the other large language models, and I would suggest that you say please and thank you, because when the robots take over, you want them to go to the ones that were really mean at them. So, on a more serious note, I talked a lot this morning about the bell curve, right? And the bell curve here is when you think about the adoption of AI, and you see that in your data. When you think about the adoption of AI, you have the folks that are on the left side of the tail that are just so afraid to do anything. I use the analogy that's like my grandma that was so afraid to leave the house to go to the grocery store. Like, that's not really where you want to be. On the other side, you have the tail of the groups that are like, we want to do everything. And you have folks that just click accept, 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 and not knowing what it is and where you're giving that data out there. Now, I'm a little bit jaded on this. My cybersecurity professor was the head of U.S. Cybersecurity Command, so but he would tell me, Sean, nothing's safe. But putting that aside, not to be super hyperbolic on that, but putting that aside, there needs to be a certain level of respect for what it is that you're doing with AI, and the guidance that I give to our clients is, one, going back to the strategy piece, let's be real clear what you want to be able to do or where you're trying to be able to drive to. I use the analogy of Yogi Berra. Everybody know Yogi Berra? Former Yankee player. He says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll get there. Also said, if you find yourself at a fork in the road, take it. So be real clear about where you want to go. But when you know that, then you can start pulling it back to say, we're going to implement these certain things. It's the stage gate process that we were talking about and the project plans of how do you get from here to there. The danger is somebody clicks accept, 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 and they put confidential information out there. And I kind of put it in some context, and don't quote me on the numbers, but I think it's probably roundabout. One is if you've got consumer protected information, and I don't, maybe some lawyers know what it is, but I think it's like $500,000 a day per instance. If you have HIPAA information, if you have employees and you have their healthcare information, I think that's like $1 million a day, something like that, per instance. If you're not really paying attention to this stuff and you give away that data and you're not paying, and you're found that you didn't do the things that you should be doing, like, you could bankrupt your company pretty quickly. Now, again, that's being hyperbolic. Flip that coin. Uber had a data event, and I think the CEO and CFO are in prison right now. So these are things, and I'm not saying this to scare you, but the things that you should really be thinking about and why you should be giving that data. So I think when you think about security, one is understand what data you have on your network and what type of data that needs to be really protected. Kind of carve that out. If you're going to put other information out there, do your best to redact it, do your best to de-identify it, so that if it does get taken, you've done somewhat of protection of yourself, and you've done it at least and given basically reasonable care. You can probably talk a little bit more on some of the things that we had this, and I'll let you. I'm not going to steal your thunder, but there's some other things that you can do in certain applications that you can layer in too that can help with that.
There are other tools you can apply here to protect, right? Because Joe Public doesn't know whether he should really redact, how he should do it, how much he should do, right? We were talking this morning and saying that, yeah, you can redact a document, but you don't want to feed the document into AI and have it redact the document. It's basically, turn itself on its head. So, Jacob, talk to us about some of the tools that you can use there.
Yeah, so a lot of the enterprise-grade AI tools have, really robust security measures built in. I mean, really where you want to be careful is where you're using these commercially available, like public tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity. That's where you would never want to be putting in PII, social security number, credit card information, things like that. You got to be really careful with that. For companies that need a lot more security, I mean, we advise either a very secure containerized cloud solution, or in extreme examples like you see a lot in the like Department of Defense type situations, they want on-premises, even air-gapped solutions. So you can run AI, you can create AI solutions that run entirely on your own facility, never connect to the internet at all in extreme situations. Now that's overkill for most like most of the things that you would encounter in the M&A space don't need that degree, but there's a lot of gradations of security, and you can calibrate to the need. But the main thing is to be aware of what are the risks and what's the business use case, what's the appropriate level of security for it.
So we talked about what it is. We talked about how you can sort of use it to help in some respects, whether it's BD, whether it's operational. We talked about some of the dangers, right? So the looming question is, what do we do? What do we do now, right? If we're sitting in the audience thinking, okay, how am I, not only for my own organization, but for my clients, what should I be thinking about? So, George, I want to start with you. I can't remember whether it was you or Sean that talked about starting down the road, but if it's the wrong road you're going down, you start laying those bricks down the wrong road, how do you get back, or how do you even decide that you're going down the wrong road?
Yeah, as to how you decide. So the part of the conversation I think you're referring to is it's better to do something and start learning than to do nothing. Now, obviously, to do it carefully, and Jacob makes some really good points. AI is very secure, but it is not foolproof, and it is a public, it's out in the public domain. I would definitely encourage people to start taking steps, but real steps. Let's go beyond ChatGPT, beyond Perplexity, but both tools I love. We have an AI agent called Claire. She is built in a very secure part of OpenAI, and is as smart as a whip. And we just started playing with it and training her, and she is now incredibly capable. And you too can be doing that. Take some steps and decide very quickly whether it's getting you. This is why the vision, mission, strategy becomes so important. Is it getting you towards where you hope to go? And then make mistakes. And when you make mistakes, celebrate them, right? Hey guys, we really screwed up. This is what we thought we were going to get. This is what we got. Let's not do that again. And keep iterating. And that is a great way to start dipping your toe in the water. Get good advice. Jacob, Sean, get good advice.
I was going to say, is there anybody out there that can help us? I think there's probably a couple on this panel that can, right? I mean, some of it is a little bit of DIY, but you've got to be careful, right? It's very limited. So, Sean, what are your thoughts on that?
I was just going to say, Jacob and I, we are super aerodynamic, so we can work on this really fast.
I'm getting there.
It's really important to bring an advisor on that actually understands how all this stuff gets connected, understands the danger, but also, quite frankly, understands what it is you're actually trying to accomplish. One of the things that I found in my research was, now granted mine was on the private equity side, but we had operating partners that were making decisions on whether or not to do certain technologies because they were like me. They were the old gray-haired guy, well, used to have gray hair, but they're guys like me that Six Sigma and Lean, and what we were taught was how to take costs out. And so sometimes, the technology provider that might do a due diligence comes in and says, here's the list of things that we need to do. There's a lot of technical debt here, and it's $1 million. And the operating partner looks at it and says, well, let's not do these other things. I saved $750,000. And you kind of look around and you say, yep, we just bought a Ferrari, but it doesn't have an engine, and it only has one tire. And so, and that's legit what happens. And so we find that in the market with a lot of the technology providers. We have a lot of MSPs that are out there that are now saying, we're doing AI. We have a joke, and I have a slide in one of the presentations I have. It's got a guy that is opening up his jacket and said, here's the AI I have to sell you today, and here's the AI I have to sell you tomorrow, thinking about like the watches, right? Or the guy that's got a sign above his head that says, I took an hour-long class on LinkedIn, I'm now an AI expert. Those are the guys that can get you in trouble on the security, right? So they're trying just to sell you a product, but it's important to have that strategy piece. And I think by layering that in, somebody like a Jacob or somebody like myself, we can kind of understand what it is that you're really trying to achieve, and we can help you make the decision on, do you actually need to build something bespoke for your company, which might be a little bit more expensive, or somebody can replicate it shortly thereafter and you spend way too much money, or do we take something that's more of a modular approach? And that was in the context that we were talking earlier too with, if you have a modular approach, there's a lot of really great products that are out there. But what we're finding in this industry and in this space right now, it's going so fast. We probably had new models come out while we've been sitting here talking, right? And so we thought OpenAI was way ahead, and then all of a sudden DeepSeek came out, and then Grok came out, and so they're all in this race. And so if you can build this in a way that's very modular, we had a good conversation this last night, something that's very modular, if you have to kind of unplug from one and plug into the other, you've built the ecosystem to be able to do that. And that's where an advisor can help you out on those.
And it's, how long, in your view, does it take to sort of get, an organization up to speed on this? So selfishly, I'll talk about a law firm, right? So I have my managing partner in the audience, so I want him to hear this too. Like, how long does that ramp up take, right? And because we're in sort of a little bit of tire kick mode, right? I think, Justin, your firm sounds like it is too. So what kind of ramp up time do you think you need, or would we need with a consultant in order for them to understand our esoteric business and what we need to be careful of in AI? Yeah, would you?
Jacob, you want to start?
Yeah. So this is a big part of what we do with our clients is kind of evaluating the options, the menu of options. And so often there will be like 50 different ideas of what they should be pursuing with AI. And we actually developed an entire framework we call APEX, AI Prioritization and Execution. We evaluate all these different things they could be pursuing across 5 critical dimensions, and I won't get into it, but it's very detailed, and out of that emerges a very clear, winner, like you should be pursuing this first, and here are the reasons why, and a complete roadmap, and we do that in collaboration with them. But honestly, putting that work in up front to know what's the highest priority thing and why, and it's probably not the one you think it is, and that's so important and foundational.
Yeah, and I'll just hook into that too, because part of it is determining what to do. The second piece is determining, does the organization have the capability and the capacity to actually take it on? And then more importantly, how much disruption are you willing to take on too? And then sometimes you have to kind of look around the room to find out, is this person going to be able to adapt to that? And it's the same advice I give to someone that's putting an ERP system in place. It's going to take, could take 4 times longer, and you might lose half your staff because they're not capable of doing that. So, but you have to have those open kind of conversations, and we're very adept at having those because we've done this a number of times. But I think you have to throw that in there as well too, just to make sure you're looking at what's the capacity of the organization. Then there's always the dollars and cents and how much you do. But in some cases, if it's something that's really quick, like you're putting a RAG model, which is a model you can think about putting ChatGPT on top of your own server to go be able to search your own documents. If you do something like that, you can do that relatively quickly with advisors that have done this before, know how to make sure the right security and the training and things like that. And then the implementation, honestly, is not the most difficult part. It's training the model. And so it's the training the model on what it is that you want that model to do. That's the part that takes a little bit more time. And that, quite honestly, is just how much use you're getting out of it and how much stuff is getting kicked out.
So we're starting to run low on time. So I want to kind of poll each one of you to say, what's the sort of takeaway here? I think I understand, or I know, or I have a preview of what the common denominator takeaway here is. But Justin, I'm going to put you on the spot and start with you.
Yeah, I think don't wait. This is the biggest thing. It's time. It's happening now. So jump on it. Figure out what's going to be the best strategy for your firm. Whether it's talking to Dr. Sean or Jacob here, but if you're going to wait, you're going to be you're going to be way behind everyone else. So you're going to end up losing clients and not providing that top service that you need to.
How about you, Bill?
Yeah, I think the takeaway here is, if I was in one of your seats, I think the message that I just heard was, we need to have a conversation about this within our company. We have to have a commitment to do something. We're probably going to need some help. There are different kinds of advisors. I had 2 clients. One of them had a really tech-capable AI company, but they don't know what to do. They're not business people. They don't know M&A or anything. So that kind of failed. And then there's the other, hang your shingle out there. I took an hour, so now I'm certified. And they might understand the industry, but they're not tech capable. So you need to find a firm like Talbot or Quantum to help you. I think it's good to have that 5-year kind of North Star of where we want to go. You can, part of that conversation, as George said, you can have that creative discussion, get your employees involved of, what could we do? And then it's going to be a combination of available tools, off-the-shelf things that are coming, and maybe some bespoke development efforts, like if you want some kind of secure location because in the conversation you've identified that you have this certain proprietary confidential information in these different areas, and this is how you're going to handle that. And then, as Justin just said, pick a milestone and do it, just if it's along a plan that makes sense. So the takeaway from this is it's better to start that process now, have that discussion, because if 5 years out, all of the competitive firms have done this, and not only that, but integrated their other workflows and data streams to feed this, you just won't be competitive. If you think you're going to wait to figure it out, I mean, imagine 25 years ago saying, "Yeah, we're gonna hang back. We're not really going to buy computers. We're just going to keep using our abacus." You had to jump into it. So I think that it's it's not a one-size-fits-all answer, but there is an answer for each one of you and each one of your firms, and it's going to involve those kind of characteristics. So it's better to have that discussion and kick it off.
So Jacob, George, or Sean, anything different to add to that, or? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have one quick takeaway, which is one thing I always tell clients: a bad tech decision can be really expensive. Indecision can be even more expensive. So make sure you get the right information, you're asking the right questions, you scope things correctly so you actually have a handle on what you're doing, and then move forward and do something in a smart way.
Yeah, be intentional.
Sean?
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. If you're intentional, and I like the word you said, the commitment to move, because if you don't, you just can't be competitive. Because as I mentioned before, using the Excel analogy, everyone else is going to be much broader, and they're going to be developing deeper insights and doing it much more quickly.
So I know we're really short on time, but any quick questions from the crowd? Yeah, repeat. So the question is AI going to make us smarter or dumber as individuals? We think it's going to make us smarter, but to some extent, we stop maybe using certain parts of our brain. So does that therefore lead to atrophy? And it also has to do with the discussion I had earlier on with the gang, which was in the schools, what are they doing? How are they adapting? The entry-level employee now is going to have to do at a higher level because those lower-level jobs are probably going to be taken over by the machine, right? So it's a good question. I'm not the expert. Anybody here can sort of talk about whether that's going to atrophy us or not.
I don't know if it's, I can't really speak to atrophying, and there's some early data suggesting that maybe it does. I don't know. I will tell you that what it does do is allow us to be humans together again, and it allows us to free up time to have I draw a distinction between analog and digital communication, and we know what that means. It'll allow you to have time to be much more analog, which frankly uses much healthier parts of your brain. So, it allows you to be a more social creature, and that is going to be killer for your biz dev.
Personally, I'm feeling kind of lazy and dumb, so I'm going to ask AI that question, and I'll get back to you.
From Boston, we say it makes you wicked smart. So,
whether it's smarter or dumber, I'm not sure I really know. But there's a lot of, if you go on YouTube, you can find a lot of stuff from Sam Altman and Bill Gates and Mr. Musk and all those guys, and they're talking about those questions. The father of AI, I had a chance to watch a little video of him a couple days ago, and he kind of thinks it's going to be the downfall of humanity. So I think the perspectives are really, really widespread, and I think it just kind of depends on your perspective. But I do think it's something that we're going to have to think about as a society around what should we be teaching in schools, and what's the skill sets that we should be having, because we're going to get to a point where we're not going to need to do that stuff. And I remember we were all in school going, you're not going to have a calculator all the time, and now we have a phone.
Yeah, right, exactly, right? I mean, you know, and we all learned from books, right, from the very beginning, that the internet came along and changed that. So we thought, oh my gosh, what's this going to do, right?
I thought you had clay tablets or something.
Yeah, right, exactly. The chisel.
I mean, what I always say is if you turn your brain off and you just trust AI, especially these large language models, you'll get dumber because parts of your brain will atrophy and it's going to make hallucinations. You're not going to catch it. If you stay sharp in your critical thinking and ability to cross-disciplinary, synthesize information from multiple disciplines, you'll stay sharp. Because you have to be the kind of the master of AI. You have to be able to evaluate its output and not just blindly trust it.
And I'll maybe close out that point. We all should be in the discipline of writing a one-pager when we have an idea. And if you do the thinking that it takes to write a really effective, clear, crisp one-pager, and then you start using AI, you're going to get better results more quickly, and your brain will not
Yeah,
be.
I think you have to have a sharper mind in order to apply AI effectively, right? It's going to be a lot of that. Human interaction is not going to go away, I would say, right? So thank you, panel. This was great. Really, really, really helpful. Really good information.
What a dynamic and informative session. Such good intel on how to use AI and to navigate in our work every day. If you want to start to implement some of these ideas, be sure to share this with your colleagues to get the conversation started. We'll see you next time. Until then, go forth and deal make.